Away, Jenny?
You should take it away.
Okay, great. So I actually did a lunch and learn on this topic last spring it's about a year ago now. And it has changed a little bit. And the biggest news that we have, some features in Read and Write for Google have changed, but the biggest news is that now this is available features. And it used to be that students only had the light version, and then if they were candidate for assistive technology, we could put in a purchase order and get them the full version, which is an annual subscription. But now our district has moved to every student and every staff member having full access to Read and Write for Google. So just a little bit of really quick history. So Read and Write for Google started out as Read and Write Gold, which was a very powerful assistive tech program. And it was very expensive, and you had to put it on a computer with lots of floppy disks and floppy drives. So it's just incredible that it's now available as simple, I say simple, but it's not, Google extension and Chrome extension. So it's come a long way, and it has as many, if not more powerful features now that it did back in the day. But just to give you that history, because TextHelp is the company that created it, and they are committed to accessibility options for people with all levels of disabilities and challenges, or all levels of abilities. So I'm going to go through the features of Read and Write for Google. Everybody at this point, if you're on our grcsu.org, if you're logged on with your email, you will already have the Read and Write for Google, which is the little purple puzzle piece. It may or may not look new to you. You may or may not have ever accessed it. But now that it's there, I know that earlier this week I saw an email from Corey that it was actually had overridden some features, and that was super simple. Thank you, Corey, for the quick explanation of how to change that. And today's explanation might make it even a little bit more user-friendly and easy to go through to get this working how you want it working, or if you don't want it working, how not to have it working. So the first thing I need to say is that Read and Write for Google is a Google extension, and so that means that you use it to extend as an extension of what you're doing with your Google Chrome. So if you are in Google Docs, there are features in Read and Write for Google that you would use to extend the functionality of your Google Docs. If you're on the web, there are all kinds of tools that you can use to access the web. So what's interesting is Read and Write for Google toolbar. Once you activate the toolbar, that toolbar automatically changes depending on the content which you're accessing. So if you're in a Google Doc, you'll have access to certain tools, and then the options will change when you go to the web. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, which means I don't get to see all your faces, so it gets a little awkward for me because I'm never got comfortable with that. But I'm going to go ahead and do it. Here. So if I can just get one person to confirm that they have my screen. Thumbs up, someone, or can you see my screen yet?
It's coming.
Slowly but surely. Oh, I get to see it too. Duh. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. There we go. Okay. So Read and Write for Google is this purple puzzle piece up here. It used to be that I'd have to talk you through how to install it or get the extension, but you don't need that now. So I'm going to go right into I'm going to open up a document. I already have it open, and I have Read and Write open in this Google Doc. So I'm working within a Google Doc, and I have this toolbar across the top with several features. So the first thing you should know is the ellipsis over here lets you access the settings. It's in here, it's called options. When you click on the options, you have different ways that you can customize the program to yourself. But if you go down to features, this allows you to customize the toolbar. So if there are things that you never use, or you know your student never uses, and you just want to make things a little bit more simple, you can toggle on or off any of the features from the toolbars. And this is all of the toolbars, even though, as I mentioned a minute ago, the tools change depending on the content that you're accessing. For now, I'm just going to leave them all on. And then the first thing I'm going to show you is the very first, I'll just go, I think I'll go from easiest to access to toughest. So one of the best uses is for students to be able to hear text on the screen. So if you highlight the text and click the play button, I'm hoping that you're going to be able to hear.
Technology. This is a paper was written with intentional errors and mistakes.
Okay, was everybody able to hear that? Because I don't often know about, and I can't see.
Yeah, I heard it.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, because sometimes if I'm using a headset, the volume doesn't work that way. So a really interesting thing that happens with students who are using assistive technology is that they can use speech to text, which is a feature on Read and Write, and I'll show you that in a minute, but then they're not able to edit their work because they maybe don't have the reading skills that are strong enough to do that. So this is a feature that once they put in their speech, once they put in their text via speech, they could then highlight the excerpt or whatever it was that they entered and then hear it back. The next button is a pause button. So if I push play and that starts to go, I can hit pause and it'll stop. And this is a stop button, so that just stops it all together. One thing that I actually really like about that feature is the highlighting of the words. So the words, for the most part, sometimes it can get a little bit laggy, but for the most part, as the words are being read, the whole thing's highlighted, then each word individually is highlighted. So there's some potential there for reading fluency, and also just for the student to see the word that's correct or not. So you see the silly sentence that I wrote. We'll get to that in a minute. So those are the three features, and it's, I said before, it's like an old school cassette player. So you have play, you have pause, and you have stop. Not sure if that's a question for me. So if it is, Jenny, if you could just kind of keep me posted on that.
Patty, this is Tom. I have a question. Is there a way to, I notice it's kind of going pretty fast when it's reading. Is there a way to slow it down?
Sure. Great question, Tom, and thanks for bringing it up. So yes, that would also be, you go in the ellipsis here, and then under options, and then for the play button, or actually features for the speech, you can toggle the speed right here. So you can have it go super fast or very slow. I typically start with it in the middle, and then you can have it be continuous reading. You could have it be only the excerpts that you have have highlighted. Sorry, I was a little bit distracted by that. And so yes, you have the capacity to change the rate of the speech. I think if we dig a little bit deeper, and I haven't done that for today's review, we could probably even see about adding in different voices and such, and that are more preferable per students. Okay, so the next feature that I'm going to show you is this check mark with a circle around it. And this is a grammar checker and a spell checker. So that's already built into Google Docs, and sometimes the two can get mixed up with each other. For today, like typically I like the Google Docs spell checker and grammar checker, but I did shut those off in my Google Docs settings for today, just so that you can see this by itself. So I click on the check it, and anything that's seeming a little strange is going to show up that there's something wrong with it. So what I do like about this is when I hover over the word and then click on it, I get several options. So if righted was really a word, or a word that I was going to use often, I could add it to my dictionary down here, or I can choose any one of these words, and obviously it just figures. My example isn't a good one because the word that I want is written, but let's see what happens when now I correct it to write, and it's catching that, oops, it's catching that it's an error, and then it brings me to written. So that's actually kind of good that happened. I didn't know it would work that way either. So, all right, so written, and then I'm going to hover over this and click on it, and none of those words are what I want. So I'll click wit, and then is that really what you wanted? And it's with. And then mistakes is mistakes. And then now the one thing I don't like about Read and Write is that it didn't catch this lack of capitalization at the front of the sentence. So I'd have to just go in and do that one. So that's not something that it picks up on. But now as a student, if I wanted to check to be sure, and I'm not a strong reader, I can now highlight this, listen, does it sound right?
This paper was written with intentional errors and mistakes.
Okay, so that didn't sound right to me because it says this is so I can go catch that because I heard it. When I was just reading it, I might not have caught that. So then I would remove this is So you can see where editing is like a higher level skill, but it's actually very much a part of the writing process, as we all know. And this is one way that helps students. Sometimes hearing it auditorily can help you. I actually, as an OT, listen to all of my evaluations that I've written. I run it through with the play feature just so that I can hear it. And I play it at a really fast speed. So it helps me edit my writing really quickly. And I kind of like that. So the next feature is Talk and Type. And that one's over here. It's the headset. So when you hit Talk and Type, if you know voice typing on Google, it's very similar. So I'll click on Talk and Type. What's really interesting is for speech-to-text technology, programs are written to listen to all kinds of speech in context, period. And when we get really frustrated or when we get misspellings, one of the things we tend to do is shout single words at our devices, and then they really don't know what we're trying to say because they rely heavily on context. So I haven't really, like now what I could do is I could highlight this and listen to the whole thing and correct any errors that came up. It was on the minute the mic when it came up was on. So that's why it got this really weird, I'm gonna just, decagon, that's a fun word, but let's just get rid of the whole thing. So that's the speech that's called Talk and Type in Read and Write for Google, but we also have voice typing. So it's very similar to voice typing in just regular Google Docs. One thing that I want to test for, and I should have done it before today, but was one of the big complaints about voice typing is that you can only use it in Google Docs, in Google Sheets, and then in the notes section on Google Slides. So I believe if we have Google Slides open and we say go down and open add another slide, it's going to take a minute. Add a slide here. Whoops, I'm zooming. I didn't need to do that. I'll unzoom. Go back down to there. Sorry about that. Would I then be able to use my Talk and Type if I add text box here and then put my cursor in here? And this would allow me, it's still in the notes. So there's our answer. Okay. I will shut that. I'll shut that. There. Okay, I'm going to go back to my assistive tech document. So there's that answer. There we go. Okay, so then the next feature in the Read and Write for Google for Chrome on the documents is this ball right here. And this is word prediction. So this is predictive typing. And then what happens is when you activate this, the other thing, I don't know if I pointed this out or if you've noticed, but whatever tool I'm clicking on will be underlined in purple. So right now the prediction tool is active. So it's fun to just kind of type out a sentence using word prediction. But if you're a new learner and you're not really sure, and say you're going to write a sentence about spring, like I know that tomorrow is the first day of spring, so I could start with to and then I'm not sure how to spell tomorrow, so I can hover over what sounds like, oh, there it is. So I pick tomorrow, and then already the next few logical words that might be next show up. So I'm going to write tomorrow is. Now I've already told all of you that my sentence is going to be tomorrow is the first day of spring. I'm really careful to tell students ahead of time to have in mind what it is that they want to write, so that these words come from them and not actually from a computer, and that they want to be the ones speaking and writing, and not the computer saying their words for them. So, but they could do that. So tomorrow is and it's the first, but say I didn't see that on there. If I type F right there, it comes up.
First fact.
I can hear every word.
Focus.
So first, and it'll come up with time, place, and I'm going to scroll down and
day.
Oh, here's day. Of is the very next logical word, and then it's spring. So I don't see that on my list, so I'm going to start typing S. Oh, there it is. Spring.
School. Spring.
That was a terrible thing to hear. Anyway, sign of the times. So tomorrow's the first day of spring. So that has been written for me. I can unhighlight this, and again, I can go back and highlight the whole sentence and listen. Is that what I meant to say?
Tomorrow is the first day of spring.
It is what I meant to say. And then I can leave it and then go on my merry way. So that's the word prediction feature. The next feature is there are two dictionaries. There's a regular dictionary, and then there's a picture dictionary. So this picture dictionary is actually really helpful for older kids who have reading challenges. And both dictionaries are helpful for kids just in writing and the whole writing process, because the other thing that can happen is when you click on either, I would need to highlight it. Oh, so it's going to be on the closest word. I can then also listen to these.
Spring.
What is spring?
Now, one of the 4 seasons. When plants begin to grow, spring is my favorite season.
Okay, so whatever I click on, it's going to give me that definition. I think I have to highlight the word, then I can click on picture dictionary, and there's going to be a few different types of spring that come up. So one is a season, one is a spring. And I could actually, I believe I can insert this word if I wanted to right here. So insert the picture right here. So it'd be fun. You could actually, it's not the original intent of it, but you could make a rebus of it, or you could make it more easily readable by young learners who don't necessarily have the decoding ability to do that. So I'm going to leave these dictionaries open for just a second. Actually, I'm not. I'm going to wait until I get to the web to do that. So those are that's the dictionary and the picture dictionary, both really helpful features. This, I'm hesitant to even go here because I'm honestly not well versed in how to do this. However, this is called Audio Maker. I think you might have to even turn it on in the features. I would encourage you, if you want audio files, to explore this a little more. And one thing I didn't say at the beginning is, as with everything, if you're not sure, the Text Help website has its own YouTube page, and you can just go to YouTube and type in the search bar, Read and Write for Google Audio Maker. I will tell you what Audio Maker does, and that is that if you highlight a text selection, you can turn it into an MP3 file and add it to another presentation or use it in another way. And so you can save that to your document. So when you have something read using the read feature, you can actually record and save that. So Audio Maker, that's how you do that. I'm going to come back to this text selection in just a minute. These have to do with the internet, so we're going to wait till we get over there. This again was TalkType. This intertwined arrows right here is a feature called Google Translator, and it is set, I believe, for Spanish. So if I highlight this selection. I'm actually going to get rid of this picture just so I don't have any weird things happening. So I'm going to highlight this sentence, and then I'm going to click Google Translate or the translator, and it's going to give me, oh, actually, it's not going to do the whole sentence for me. It's going to do one word at a time. So tomorrow is mañana, is, then I get the verb, and then the is L, and so on and so forth. And so that's Google Translator, which is actually a really nice feature for language students. I don't know, honestly, if there is other languages available. I've only ever seen it in Spanish, but I am going to try typing. Let me see. I'm trying to think of a Spanish word that doesn't have like a weird punctuation on it or accents or anything. So let's say semana. Okay. So now if I click on this word and hit translate, oh, maybe I have to set it in the settings. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. I was thinking it would take me back, but I probably have to toggle it back to go English to Spanish. But if there are language teachers on and would like to set up a time that we can explore that together, I would be happy to do that. The next feature is you'll see highlighters. So there's 4 different color highlighters. This is the highlighter eraser. So what you can do is go through and highlight words. So if there's a document that I'm going through and say I want to highlight all the words that are, I don't know, in this case, I'm going to say nouns. So this paper, whoops, sorry, this paper, and I'm going to highlight the nouns in yellow, and I'm going to highlight the verbs in green, and I'm going to highlight say I want to do numbers. I can have any category I want. I'm going to do numbers in blue. Oh, here's another verb. So then the next thing I can do, once I've highlighted the words that I want to in the different categories, and I choose what those categories are, just like if I was reading a book and I was going to go highlight different types of text. You go to this where the arrows are in a circle, and what pops up is it's collect highlights. So now I click on that, and which colors do you want to collect? Well, I want to collect them. I want to collect the 3 that I got. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to sort them by color. You could also sort them by the position on the paper. So, but I'm going to sort them by color, and then I click OK, and then it's going to open it. It's going to create a new document and open it and show me those words in the order of which I like by color. So what I could do is now put a title above this, like nouns, numbers, verbs. And how that feature might be helpful is if you're trying to collect vocabulary words for a class. So if someone shares a paper and you want to collect pertinent vocabulary and create a vocabulary list or a spelling list, math terms, or whatever it is, you can collect the terms, and then they'll automatically put them into another document. It's also useful on the web, and I'll show you that in just a minute. This feature is a vocabulary list. I'm going to talk about that one in a minute. Voice note is what it sounds like. You can make a voice note within a text on the page. So if I click here and click context, so now the student should hear my voice saying context when they click on this, and I didn't hear it. I don't know if you guys did. But what, for those of us taking the UDL course, right? So those of us that are working on the UDL. So if I needed to explain something out a little bit further, so say I wanted to say what frustrated is, I could add a definition right there, or a question, or if I wanted to extend the assignment, I could, click on here and then add a voice note that says, tell about a time you were frustrated, or I could just give my definition. Frustrated is when you are feeling really grumpy about not being able to get something done, or, you know, I could put whatever I wanted on there, but I could add voice notes throughout documents using that feature. And then this last one is Fluency Trainer and Practice Reading Aloud. And I'm not going to go there today because I just don't feel it's a useful tool, but I feel that as I'm not a reading teacher, so I don't want to, I want to know more about reading and that before I shared it with everybody. So there's that. So now what I'm going to do, those are the features for Read and Write for Google when you're in a document or an app.
Patty,
Now what
can I
happens?
pause you for a second? Sorry
Yes.
to interrupt. I do see 2 hands raised. Do you want to take questions before we move to the next part?
Yeah, let's do that because I'm going to be shifting to a different type. So Tom, are
Okay,
you asking a
I
question?
see Thomas and Jamie.
I actually, I that was the question I had before.
Or before, okay.
With my hand.
Cool.
Thank
okay.
you.
And Jamie? I don't see Jamie.
Hi. So how easy is it for the students? Is it already just installed that they already have it? Do I have to install it beforehand, like by adding the extension for them?
So our district, and I think Jenny or Corey could speak to this a little bit better, but it just got pushed out to all students like within the past week. A colleague of mine was with a student when it came on their screen, and it was a very exciting moment for them and very distracting moment for them too. So it's we got a chuckle out of that. So all students have it. I will tell you that, you know, there's this sometimes a misunderstanding about assistive technology that, oh, we gave them the devices and now they can do these tasks. But actually there's a learning curve and there's a teaching pattern to using the tools. And that's been something that's come up a few times this year, especially like Tom and I have a student who is going to be using these features. And there's definitely, you know, the need, and anybody could teach it, but it does need to be taught. Like you can't just say, okay, now you can do speech to text. So everything you write is now going to be on the computer and you're fine and good to go. Like you can't just give the technology and say, now you're fine. You really have to take the time to make sure they understand it. And the best way to do that is to get to know it a little bit yourself and then understand, you know, exactly what it is that they need to be doing and how they would go about it. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Megan?
Hi, Megan.
Hey, Patty. I know that when you were showing the Google slide feature, it still plunked it down in the notes section.
It did, yeah.
One way to override that, kind of, sorta, is I have the kids use text-to-speech in that note space, and then they copy and paste it if that's a realistic fit for that student. But then I think they may be able to use the read and write to edit on the slide.
That's awesome. You know what? That's a perfect workaround. And that's something that our kids are going to be better at probably than we are. But usually if the one way you think of is going to work doesn't, there is usually another way. And I love that you pointed that out because it's not something I had thought of, but it's definitely a great workaround. And that would stand true for voice typing as well, I would imagine, because voice typing does allow you to put notes, text into the notes on Google Slides as well. But
yes, I've had a couple of students realize that. So give credit where it's due. It's them, not me.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for sharing that, Megan, because that's actually a really good idea. Are there other questions about the features of Google Read and Write for Google within apps and using the features for writing and editing? Okay, then I can't see everybody, but Jenny, you'll tell me if there are, right?
I don't see any hands raised.
Good. Awesome. Okay. So now I'm going to go over and show how some of the features that you can use Read and Write for Google for when you're accessing the internet and websites. So I have National Snow and Ice. Let me go to the top data center here. And I have Read and Write activated for some reason. And I don't know if this is the case all the time, but for some reason for me today, it took some time. I clicked on the icon and it took a little while for it to load. I don't know why, but that's why when I was preparing for today, just making sure everything was going to run, I just opened Read and Write ahead of time. So that's why it's there immediately. It will only open if you open it. And if I close it by hitting the X here, it will go away and it won't come open again until I ask it to. So if you don't want it there, it doesn't have to be there. So these tools, some of them are the same. There are a few that are a little bit different, and I'm going to show you the differences. The first one is, I don't know if this was on, I didn't even notice if this was on the other document, but this is just to move the toolbar around. So maybe if it's in the way, I can slide it down to the bottom, but I can put this toolbar wherever I want with a click and drag. Okay. Prediction is here. I wouldn't use that on a website unless it was an active website and I was entering text, in which case I could put maybe, I don't know that I want to try that in a search bar right now because I don't want to get anything wonky because I have my plan. So the next, the most, like my favorite feature of the Read and Write ways to using Read and Write to access websites is on the far right, the second one over. This is called Simplify Page. So when I click on this, it's going to get rid of all that extra stuff, like what I call visual noise. Like it just is really, this is taking a minute, so it doesn't make it that simple. That would be really weird. But it gets rid of, believe it or not, ads. It gets rid of, maybe I have it too simplified. Let me see. Okay, that made it very simple. That is not what's supposed to happen. So let me go try and do that again. I don't know why it took out so much. And if it does it again, then that might just be something with this website. But maybe it's because, oh, I know, maybe I had some things highlighted on here. So let me go ahead and try that again. I got my fingers crossed that this isn't going to glitch on me. So, okay. So this is all of the text that was on that previous page. It opens it up in a separate page. And so this is the original page. And now I'm going to go to a different tab. And this is all of that text simplified. So that I can just, if I want to get really down to without all of the extra visuals, if I really just want to be recognizing the text, it simplifies just what it says. It simplifies the page. Underneath automatically pops up a menu bar or toolbar that I can toggle on and off and change the font and change the spacing. So if I wanted black on white, I can do white on black. I can do blue and yellow. Those are the only options: blue, yellow, black and white. This feature, Discover, and the reason it says beta under there is that's the version of Read and Write for Google. But Discover is interesting in that when you have it on a website, it sometimes will underline words like, do I want to know more about glaciers? And then it underlines what it deems words that I might want to explore a little bit deeper. And I think it's neat because it calls attention to some of the more pertinent terms and topics on a website. I'll click on one just so that we can see how it works. So what is Arctic sea ice? And then that will give me a visual. And I believe that comes from the website before it was simplified. And then if I wanted to, I could actually now, well, I'll show you that feature in a minute, but I could actually highlight the text and listen to it here too. So I'm going to go to that feature in just a minute. So I'm going to take that off. I'm going to turn off Discover Beta because it's distracting. I really do like this feature of simplifying a web page, though. It makes it a lot easier to work with. You can change your fonts. You can change the font size. That Open Dyslexic we can talk about another day. I don't know if you all have it, but it's an interesting font to talk about. You can change the spacing and whatnot. So I'm going to go ahead and I think I can simplify this. So I think there's 2 levels of simplification. So a little bit or a lot. But I'm going to go back to the regular web page. And so that was these lines getting gradually smaller. It's Simplify Page. Oh, and the other thing is that's very helpful is just if you hover, it'll tell you what the feature, what the tool is that you're going to be accessing. So this right here with the speech bubble with the arrow on it is called hover speech. So I can do one of a couple things right now to read this page. I could highlight or just start by clicking the play button and have this read. And I'm going to do that in a minute. But before I do, I'm going to click hover speech. And just as it sounds, that's going to be a description of the picture. But whatever I hover over, it's going to speak it.
After the ICE video series.
Then it stops talking. So I only get what I hover over, like that phrase or sentence.
A collaborative project captures the voices of Alaskan indigenous communities facing a changing Bering Sea.
Okay. And then
empty boat.
No, that's an empty boat, everybody, in case you didn't hear it the first time.
Advancing knowledge of Earth's frozen regions.
Okay, so wherever I hover, it's going to speak what it sees.
NSIDC manages and distributes scientific data, creates tools.
I can use the pause button or the stop button when I hover and too much is happening, because I don't think we need to hear the whole thing. So I'm going to take the hover speech off. And now I'm going to highlight, I'm going to go a little further down, and I'm going to highlight a selection. And this is another way to hear the website.
Since 2006, the Exchange for Local Observations and Knowledge of the Arctic, ELOCA, program of the National...
So that's the feature of just using the reading aspect of Read and Write for Google, is just highlighting text and listening to it, or hover speech. Hover speech is good if you know that what you want to be doing is kind of perusing around a website and you're going to hover over things and hear it. If you have it on and you're just kind of moving around, it can be a little bit a nuisance, because it's like the few times that I hovered over the boat. You don't want to hear that every time you go over the picture. So hover speech can be a little bit problematic if you are easily distracted like me auditorily. So you don't want that. You don't want to be hearing every single thing that you scroll over. The other features on here, you could still use the dictionary, highlight a word, and here it comes. Here's the word, and then let's look at ice, and maybe here's a picture of ice. And I can also listen to the word ice.
Ice.
Okay. And so I can have these dictionaries just open so that I don't have to keep clicking on them. And then I can be reading. And if a word comes up and I don't understand it, what is mitigate? There's obviously not going to be a picture from mitigate, but, and I don't know what that is.
Verb. Lessen or to try to lessen the seriousness or extent of the circumstances, extenuate the crime, and quote.
Okay. So I can leave the dictionaries open. I think I can change their size. Not sure about that. Maybe not. There was one other feature that I tried and I actually couldn't get it to work today. This is select screenshot reader. So if there's something on the screen and you hover over it and it doesn't, for some reason, read it, it's not going to work on here. Most of these are going to be okay. But you can take a screenshot. Nope, it's not working. I'm not going to attempt to describe that until next time, because I couldn't get it to work earlier either. So that's something on my list to learn. Okay, so so I've gotten hover speech, then speak on a website. The next one is screen mask. This is also a really good feature. Let's click on it. This is a fabulous feature for anybody who needs bookmarking to scroll through a website and read line by line. Basically, it masks out the background. It's still there and available, but you hover over the part you want. And actually, what I really like about it is that you can toggle. I should shut the screen masking off so that I can, hold on one second. I'm going to shut the screen masking off so that I can oh boy. There we go. So that you can look at the options available. So you can have the light color and the back color be different. If you click on this, you have all kinds of choices. The opacity, I don't know how to pronounce that. You can make it more or less opaque you know, that part. And then both on the background color and the reading light color. And then you can have the height of it change. So how much is masked at one time. I like a, you know, you could take it all the way down to just a little bit, which is going to show like one line versus a few lines at a time. And then I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to go back and show that screen reader one more time because I made the area a little bit bigger. So I find this to be a really nice feature for kids who are visually distracted, and it actually could really be helpful for anybody who wanted to just reduce the external distractors and focus and hone in on what it is that they're reading. So that's a really cool feature. This can be moved around. That's what that is. I'm not sure why with the settings. I guess I could still access the settings as I'm in it. No problem with that, but I'll cancel that out. And then I'm going to shut this off. So that to me is one of the best features. I use that with high school students. That just makes it a little bit easier. I think I might start using it personally. I just forget to do so, but I think it's actually a really nice feature to have. I'm trying to see if there was, oh yes, so web search. Oops, sorry. Web search. Oh, actually, let me go back. I forgot to cover one when I was in my document. Web search is if I have a term that I want to learn about, I can highlight the word and click on web search, and it will give me an instant link to a web search of like whatever the term is. In this case, I clicked on the word technology, and it takes me into a web search on technology. Sorry, I forgot to cover that feature there. And let's see, let me go back to here. So a vocabulary list, that's going to contain everything that was on the page because I didn't. So I can add to my vocabulary list, and that would be, let me do that over because I didn't do that in the right order. So I could either add to my vocabulary list by activating the feature that was in, what was it in? Drawing a blank here. The one where the terms could all be underlined. So
since 2006.
Whoops, I hovered over that by accident. But it goes along with creating a list with highlighted words. But it was the one. What was the feature that I had that had the purple
March 11,
underlined?
2021.
There's a great example of why you don't want hover speech left on. When it was on simplify page, sorry. And then you can create a vocabulary list from those underlined words. But there's several ways to create vocabulary lists. Or I wouldn't say several, but a couple of ways to create vocabulary lists in that feature. So I did want to save some time for question and answers at the end. And I think I've covered just about all of the features very briefly and very quickly. I would definitely encourage you to look at the practice reading aloud. It's like a fluency builder. But like I said, I just don't feel enough like that's my area of expertise to kind of, I just don't feel like it's within my scope to be trying to cover that part of assistive tech or education. But another thing that I wanted to add is that along with the text help subscription, it was sort of a package deal where there's another program that's sort of the math equivalent of Read and Write for Google, which is called Equatio, which is the word equation without an N on the end. And that's a whole different, I am not very well versed in that, but it does allow for you to write math equations online. And I know there's other extensions and even some apps that allow for you to do that. So Equatio is another one that has been made accessible, full features to everybody. So as I said before, like anytime you want to know about any of this, it's as simple as a search and you get really good information just by going to the website. It's the Text Help, which is the parent company of both Equatio. And they have a few other tools as well. So we have Equatio and Read and Write for Google for everybody. And those are two really powerful tools. Read and Write for Google has been around. Read and Write, as I said before, Read and Write Gold has been around for decades and has been one of the most highly regarded tools in the assistive tech world for students with disabilities. So I'd welcome any questions right now if anybody has any, or any comments, or if you want to be like Megan, if you have some other ideas and workarounds, or if anybody has ideas about
Patty, I would like to add that Corey created a module on Equatio. So if anyone is interested in learning a little bit more about that, that is there in the modules on our website.
Awesome. That's really good. That's great. Does anybody have any ideas about how they might use this with students? I mean, I'm thinking I know how I use it with students with significant special needs, but even just in the general ed population, there's lots of use.
I'm an interventionist at West Rutland, and I'm going to be using this definitely because kids will write, even if you tell them to go back and read it again, they'll just miss it. So to hear it in the computer telling them, I feel like will have them realize more than just myself telling them. Mm-hmm. So because it's hard when it's right in front of you. So I think I can't wait to use it, to be honest with you.
Awesome. So then Jamie, I would highly encourage you, and I would love to connect with you on the Fluency. It used to be called Fluency. I think it was like Fluency Teacher, but the read aloud aspect of it and the practice reading aloud, because I think it records the child, and then the child there's something like that, and then it plays back and they can hear their reading and check for accuracy. So I think that's going to be even more powerful than all this other stuff put together potentially for your students.
And that was that little icon that I would have to explore a little bit more, right?
Yep, it's the one on the far right, and it's a little kid. It looks like a person reading a book.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, so I would definitely explore that, and definitely go to the Text Help website, Read and Write for Google, and there are quite a few features that are relatively new compared to when I've been using this. And so when I was prepping for today, I would just type in Read and Write for Google Chrome, Check It, for example. Check It wasn't always a full feature there. And then up would pop and it's easy. It's like a 90-second video and you go, oh, now I know what it does. And so I found that to be really helpful too, just like sometimes seeing it and hearing it elsewhere. So I'm excited that you're going to use it. I would love to connect and see, if you're finding it successful, and kind of share ideas about it. Yeah. I can't see everybody on I'm trying to make sure I got everybody. Are there any other questions? I guess you could just unmute and ask if you have a question. All right. I'll share a funny story. Thank you, Heather. Is Ben Curtis here? I don't know. This is funny because this happened in his classroom. So some very clever students had a question, and that he had asked a question. This was last year. It was actually before COVID. So he had asked a question, and the students were supposed to respond with an answer online. They were supposed to open up a Google Doc. So some clever kids went over and hit voice typing and went to Mr. Curtis and said, hey, Mr. Curtis, what's the circumference of blah, blah, blah? Or probably it was a history question because he's a history teacher. So they hit the microphone on voice typing and they kind of just held it. And then Mr. Curtis said his answer, and there they had it in their document. And he wasn't going to give him credit. And I said he had to because, they get an A for creativity, right? That's a good workaround. I don't know the answer. I don't want to do the work, but my teacher just told me. So here it is. So I thought it was pretty funny.
Using your resources, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So I don't know how I got the lucky slot Friday at 2. Saving the best for last, maybe. I don't know. But yeah. Anyway.
Well, we appreciate it so much, Patty. Thank you so much for doing this and for doing it at 2:00 on a Friday.
Yeah.
And thanks to all of you for coming at 2:00 on a Friday.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks everybody, and definitely reach out to me. I love this stuff. It's kind of like my gig. I get super excited about it. So if I don't know, I'll find out, or we'll find out together. So cool. All right, have a great weekend.